and I officially declare it as winter. The last few days it's been super frosty. The cold has set in, but nonetheless, we have come out this evening to take a look at a camera. In this little pouch, I have the Insta360 X4. This camera has been around for a while, however, the X4 is their most recent update. And after watching the other ones come out, after seeing other people use these cameras, I thought I'm gonna get my hands on one of these new cameras to see how it is, to see what it does, and to see if this camera is a camera that you should consider buying. I was driving along this really narrow country road the other day, going quite fast, and I saw this lump in the road in front of me, and I thought, that might be an animal. So I started braking. It could have just been a plastic bag, but I pulled to a stop. I got out of the car, and this happened.
What are you doing in the road? You can't be in the road. Why was he there?
So first of all, what is the Insta360 X4? This is a compact action 360-degree camera. This is a camera that can do anything you need. If you're mountain biking down a cliff, you can take this camera. If you're skydiving, you can take this camera. If you're filming POV cooking videos, you can use this camera. And if you're just vlogging and you want a regular action camera, this can do it. Everyone would want it, right? In this video, we're going to talk about the reasons you want it and the reasons you can use it and the reasons it's great. But having used it in my workflow and in my content creation, I'm also going to highlight a couple of challenges when it comes to having a camera that can do everything. So first of all, design. I really like the design of this camera. It's relatively compact, it's smaller than a phone, and it's built of good materials. It has a plasticky rubber casing around the edge and a thermal guard, which you can add on, and this comes as standard with the X4. On the back, there is a large 2.5-inch screen, which is a touch screen, and this is now made of Gorilla Glass, so it's more protective than the old one, which in the X3 was also smaller. It was about 2.29 inches. That larger, brighter screen means that you can easily see what you're doing on the camera. You can review your footage, and it makes controlling the camera on the back much easier. Around that, we have buttons which are rubber, and they're nice and clear to use. There is only 4 buttons. There's a power button, there's a custom button, there's a menu button, and there is a shutter button. These buttons obviously double up as multi-use, but they're nice and easy to access, they're nice and easy to feel, and when you're out in the cold or if you're wearing gloves, they're easy to click because there's not a specific button and they're not a switch. You just press down on the rubber and it clicks nice and easily. This camera has a bunch of doors and flaps down one side of the camera. The first one, the bottom one, being the main one with the battery and the SD card socket, and the one above that being the charging port and where you could attach a microphone if you wanted to. Each of these doors has rubber seals around the clasps. You have to push them in properly, but those rubber seals means that this is weatherproof. You can take this camera underwater or in the sea or out in the rain. So that takes us on to the next part, which is durability of this camera. This camera can be taken anywhere and is very robust. I wouldn't worry too much if I was to drop it on the floor right now, which it is a sandy beach, but there's a lot of rocks. If I was to drop it onto this rock I'd be sitting on, I wouldn't be stressing too much except for the lens. The body and the Gorilla Glass would all be fine, the buttons would still work, it would be all right, except for these exposed lens. Because it's a 360-degree camera, it has very exposed lens. These lenses stick out on both sides because they have to, especially because this camera has an invisible selfie stick. But in order to have this invisible selfie stick on the bottom, the lenses have to stick out further than the body to cut out either side. That means if I was to drop this camera, it would likely end up landing on one of these 2 very large lenses, and if they get scratched, it's less than ideal. We have an Instagram, and currently there's only 30 people on it. Now those 30 people are currently my favorite fans. So if you want to be one of them, go across to Instagram, go follow me, because you'll get a bunch of behind the scenes footage of what we get up to, of the equipment, of clothes that I'm bringing out, and I just really want you guys to be part of the family. Don't miss out, it's free. You're probably on Instagram already, so why not go check it out at CameraWare. But as standard, you get 2 lens guards that come with the camera. So currently, on each of these lenses, I have one of these little lens guards. They're like little contact lenses that sits on the lens. That protects it, and there's settings in the camera where the camera can then record the fact it's got those lenses on, and it knows to adjust the footage. And it means that these, although they're not completely protected, and those guards can obviously get scratched, and you may have to buy new ones at not too much of a price, but you may still have to buy new ones, the lens is protected while still exposed. So let's talk about the function of this camera. As a 360-degree camera, if I were to start filming now, it would film me, it would film the floor, it would film the sky, and it would film the beach that is in front of me. This films everything, and it can do that in up to 11K in time-lapse, which is really impressive, meaning that if I was to film everything, I could still crop in on a certain part and get good quality footage. The camera can shoot video, it can shoot pictures, it can do time-lapse and hyperlapse. Some more features are bullet time, loop recording, star lapse, burst mode, interval mode, HDR photo. So there's so many modes on this camera that you can literally film whatever you wanted to film. It has a preset, it has a mode for anything you could want. And while they're all in the 360 mode, it has separate modes if you just want to shoot like a normal action camera, because not only can you do these things with the full 360, most of them you can also do as a regular action camera, which just uses one of the lenses. So if I wanted to use this like a GoPro 11, I could set it to single lens mode, where it uses the lens on the side with the screen, and I could see what I was doing if I wanted to vlog with it. This is super useful because it means that you can just vlog normally with the camera. Which takes me on to, why would you want to do that? And the answer is post-processing. The creativity you can have with this camera is fantastic. You can honestly shoot the most interesting vlogs of the most boring things with this camera. However, when you come to editing it, it's a lot of work. As someone who isn't half as keen on the editing process as they are on the filming process, when I get all of the footage, especially when it's in 8 or 11K, and have to then edit that on my laptop, which will often start lagging because there's huge files to process. Let's just say sometimes I wish I shot in a normal mode. So the reason that I love this camera is because it has the ability to do all of these creative, awesome shots in really good quality with so much versatility. But you're not limited to only doing those shots. You can also do standard things with it. You can use it like a normal GoPro, bringing in that simplicity of not having to reframe it afterwards, of not having to worry about doing all these extra fancy edits. As someone who travels and goes on long trips without the ability to always recharge one's batteries, this camera has a battery life of 135 minutes after only a 55-minute charge. This is super handy, and it's longer than the X3, which only had a battery life of 81 minutes. This means that I can take this camera out and shoot for over 2 hours reliably, knowing that it will be shooting and I won't have to worry about recharging it. And when I do, I can plug it into my car for an hour, knowing it'll then be full charge, ready to do 2 more hours of filming. When Insta360 made their X4, they knew that they were targeting vloggers, and they knew that there'd be people who would want to take this out as their sole camera to do everything. This camera has microphones built in, which are pretty good. I pretty much only film outside, and so for me, one of the big things is noise reduction when it comes to wind, or things like the waves which are going on right now. And so knowing that there's audio which is reliable, that doesn't get too windswept, that you can hear clearly, is great, of which this camera has good audio. I've used it many times where I've had my mic plugged into my phone recording audio as a backup, and then in editing I've decided just to use the audio straight from the camera because it's been good quality, and being able to take that pressure off, knowing this will record good quality, so if I want to use my own audio I can, but I don't have to. Or if you're someone who wants to set off and just use this camera as your audio, you can pretty much rely on it. Now, if you're taking it out to the top of a ridiculously windy cliff, anything's gonna struggle. So you need to be wise with it. But this camera, for what it is, it has pretty good microphones. After doing a time lapse or shooting in 8K or 11K for an extended period of time, this camera will get quite hot. It's never turned off because of it for me, it's never corrupted files because of it for me. However, it's something which is in the back of my mind, and that will come back to the thermal guard which they supply. My old DJI Action 2, that used to overheat as well. For me, it seems that action cameras overheat. And to be honest, that's part of the trade. They're a very small item which are processing a lot of information, so kind of expected. If I was doing my Europe trip, which is going to happen in a couple of years, heck, I want this, because when I'm at the top of the mountain, I want some awesome creative shots. But if I'm walking around Wiltshire, do I need it? Probably not. Especially if you're paying the full 500 for it. And currently, because this is a new model, there are very few second-hand ones out there. It's not cheap, but it gives you such a creative bonus. It lets you do so many awesome shots and so many awesome things, which if you go through my videos of recent, you'll see me using this camera in all my trips. Like, I use this camera, I take it out, I take those creative shots, and I love it. But it comes with a price. And finally, if you are looking for that professional, crisp audio, if audio is what gets you going, then you're going to struggle to plug an external microphone into this camera. Because it's a 360 camera and it records everything and all the surroundings, if you have wires or things that are sticking out, which aren't specifically from Insta360, such as their adapter, then that may get in your shots. And so this camera will be linked down in the description below, and if you choose to buy it, I will get a tiny portion of that through the affiliate link system with no extra cost to you. So I would really appreciate it if you went down, check those links out. Also check out my Instagram and hit that like down below. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I will see you in the next one.